Hi, everyone. Okay, so I'd like to welcome my other panelists. We have Victor Boyle, the founder of Givo. Is he around? Victor, wave if you're here. Okay, and here he comes. We also have Modupe Abolaho from Buy Let Live. Okwe Adetiba from Purple. And Tosin Ajose from Deal HQ Partners. Hi. Can we give them a round of applause, please, as they come onto the stage? Thank you. Thank you, everyone. So today we're talking about diversity, sustainability, and corporate governance in and through Proptech. And we have amazing panelists here who hopefully will have a really engaging discussion. There's no doubt that the future is digital. And Proptech helps us make better, safer, smarter, and more sustainable decisions and more sustainable uses of our resources as well. ESG is also an element that is becoming more prominent in PropTech. And by ESG, we mean the environmental, the social impact, and the corporate governance of how a company or a real estate asset is run. So with PropTech, there's so many areas to focus on. We have things like building certification, lead certifications, we have cloud applications, we have corporate governance applications. And so PropTech really poses a unique opportunity to streamline like data gathering, auditing, governance, etc. And it's very critical in helping property investors as well as property owners in understanding where change and innovation is needed. So with that in mind, we will start this conversation by talking a little bit about governance. And so my first question is to, we'll start talking about the environment. And my first question is to Okwe and Modupe. So statistics show that buildings and construction are responsible for about 39% of global carbon emissions, with energy used to power buildings accounting for about 28% of it. Now, what are the PropTech solutions available to help companies focus on improving their energy efficiency? And Modupe, ladies first.
Thank you. So I think the stakeholders in the real estate industry, we all have a role to play. So for instance, let's start from design and architecture. You know, we can actually put in a lot of innovation that allows for better ventilation. So, I mean, you don't need to have the power on all the time. We could also say, look, let's install these solar panels, you know, that could also alternate for, you know, the generators, also have the inverters and whatnot. So, I mean, if we're able to innovate and come up with new ideas, you know, they're all around us anyways, you know, so adapting and integrating the green technology features in development will go a long way to take care of this. So, I mean, I think these will go a long way in helping.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with that. And I think what's also key is sort of making sure those innovations are worked into the development from the start, because that's really how you get the most value. If you plan to build green from the start, you can incorporate those things into your developments, and you have those things recording data and getting you value from day one. You know, there's things like, I think, EDGE, which is actually really important. I think it's a very good framework for sort of setting you out to build green. And, you know, obviously it creates a pathway for you to then sort of access finance and other things because of, you know, different grants or different, you know, accesses to finance that are only available to green builders and stuff like that. So I think it's important if it's actually worked into the mindset of developers from the start, so that the buildings themselves become smarter. Because if you think about it, if you lay it out properly from day one, you can actually create assets that are much more energy efficient that way. So I think there's different software platforms as well. Like there's this one called Bracklet that helps you sort of accumulate. It accumulates utility bills for different commercial buildings, and it lets you sort of aggregate and view and sort of benchmark your own energy efficiency based on what other people are doing currently. So it really, sort of provides insight for you to understand how, okay, maybe these people are using a certain material, they're using a certain technique. It really helps you to understand how those savings are generated via what Proptech solutions or via what building solutions you do from the start. So yeah, would definitely agree. And those are some of the very, very important platforms that currently exist.
Okay, excellent. So what you're saying is the earlier we bringing these Proptech solutions into the development process, right from design all the way through to construction, you can actually have a smarter and more energy efficient building. Okay, so we're still talking about the environment, but we're going to switch a little bit from the real world to the virtual world. You can't really talk about Proptech or even technology at all without really talking about the metaverse, one of my favorite subjects at the moment. And I'm going to direct this at Tosin and Victor, because the metaverse offers virtual and augmented reality, which are great for remote work solutions, great for industrial simulations, etc. And these sorts of things can really help reduce those carbon emissions that we talked about earlier. We also know that, I'm not sure if you know that Ubuntu Land was Africa's first virtual land provider in the metaverse, and they provided 200,000 plots for sale. The BBC also recently noted that investment into land in the metaverse had increased to about $12 billion in the past 12 months. So this is really an element of the real estate or the built environment in the virtual world that we can't really ignore. So now my question is, how can real estate investors protect themselves in such an unregulated environment like the metaverse? And what sort of regulation needs to be put in place for this to really become a more secure environment for everyone? And so Tosin, you first.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. So because I'm here on borrowed time, I'll first of all introduce myself and what I do. My name is Tosin Ajose. I'm a commercial lawyer, and I'm the lead advisor at a transactional advisory law firm called Deal HQ. Having said that, I will then go ahead to speak to the question. So my opinion is that the metaverse is a platform that allows for operational and social interaction digitally. And of course, we know that the market is growing significantly, and a lot of people are, building influence and pitching positions in the metaverse, and people are trying to, own a piece of this virtual world that is emerging. And I was reading something recently where we have quite a number of people that are now, creating lots, in the metaverse for sale, and one of them is Decentraland, and a lot on Decentraland now is going for over $15,000 US, and interest is peaking, for a lot of these things. And so the question that a lot of people are asking is this a potential threat to what we know as conventional real estate and real estate investing? I don't think it is, right? Because when we go into the metaverse and enjoy this augmented, reality platform that allows us to, have enhanced social interaction, we're not going to stay there. You're still going to come home and sleep on your bed, okay? We do that to ensure that, we are able to live easier, we're able to interact better, we're able to, advance, solutions to problems that we face in the real life. But primarily, those platforms help to aid interaction. And like you said rightly, it helps us to minimize carbon footprints that we spend trying to do physical interaction in the conventional world. However, I'm not going to go into the metaverse and buy a lot there, build a house, and sleep there. When I'm hungry, I'm not going to eat digital food. When I need healthcare, I'm not going to perhaps, maybe it would augment the opportunity to have, interaction with medical personnel or what have you. But I wait to see the day that, we will be able to do surgical interventions in the metaverse. I think we're still a long way, ahead from that. So do I think that it's a threat to real estate, the conventional real estate? I don't think so. But do I think that there's significant opportunity? I think that yes, there is, because we are beginning to digitize a lot of human experiences and interaction. And what that means is that where there are platforms that enable these experiences and interactions to happen, then there are opportunities there that can be monetized, that can be enjoyed, and that can be used to solve, real life problems. So I think we should be looking, intently at positioning for, the benefits of, the metaverse, because there is potential for every form of human interaction to be digitized, right? Except for the ones that have to do with, eating and, sleeping and, medical care and what have you. So do I think we should be paying attention? Yes, I do think. Do I think it's a threat to conventional real estate and real estate investment? I think they would complement each other, very well and very perfectly. Now, to people who are making investments in the metaverse, how do you ensure that you are protected in an unregulated environment? So many of us heard, the news over the week about what happened, on one of the biggest, on one of the biggest trading platforms for cryptocurrency, and a lot of people had heavy exposure to, these platforms, from institutional investors to some people who are high net worth individuals and what have you. But what is the lesson that we have learned from it? Some people will say that when you have, these digital assets on decentralized platforms, it makes them safer. Some other people would argue that it's safer when they are not decentralized, and so the people who have built this product have a bit more control, and they are able to ensure that, there is some internal governance that happens. But I think long and short of it is understand the product. If you're making investments and getting exposure to any kind of digital asset, any kind of digital investment or platform, the first thing to do is to understand. Ensure that you are able to navigate all the risk points. So we all know that there is there's no regulatory platform, so to speak, that is centralized around all of these, assets. But we need to start, encouraging conversations around understanding risk, asking questions, and being able to take position to say, if I'm taking exposure to this and there is no much clarity around the risk positioning, then I know that, I am entering this knowing that there are risks around it, and I'm not going to expose myself to the extent that if anything goes wrong, then I find myself, completely out of sorts. I think another point that I would mention is that you need to ensure that you have capacity and that you have understanding. So even in the little interactions that a lot of us have with technology, you download an app on your telephone. You don't understand. You don't wait to understand the terms of use, understand, the principles that surround, you actually being, using that product. And everywhere we go, we are dropping our digital footprints and we are exposing ourselves, and nobody is paying attention to the risks. At the very minimum, any kind of product that you are interacting with, be sure that you understand the principles that even govern using the product. Be sure that you understand, the potential risks. I think maybe as we go along, we're going to talk a bit more about data and, cybersecurity, but please ensure that you get sufficient knowledge for you to understand until we get to a point where, we have a more regulated, market structure. Whether that regulation will come from government, I doubt, but I think more and more as people interact with platforms, people who are building products and building marketplaces now have a responsibility to ensure that there are rules that govern, the operations of those platforms that keep people safe and secure.
Itosin. So Victor, I know we had
Yeah.
a conversation about this. Over to you.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Victor, and I'll just take the example of my last speaker and introduce myself. So yes, my name is Victor. I'm a circular economist, and I do technology. I like to say that because on different days you might see me doing different types of technology. But the thing that the common theme around all of them is digitization, especially with the use of IoT, Internet of Things, and artificial intelligence. And I am a chartered accountant by training. So this is going to reflect in my answer. And I think what she said is really, really interesting and really right. But just to the crux of it, in terms of cryptocurrency, regulation, all of these things, metaverse, again, there is a difference between all of these, right? So let me just put that out there up front. And I also have to say, from my understanding, the metaverse, yes, runs on blockchain and some of those things, but the metaverse is owned by entities, right? And so you're dealing with, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, right? Dealing with contracts with entities rather than property law in the metaverse, right? And so your exposure is different. And so, for example, like she mentioned, when you're in those apps, right, or you're on those websites and you're clicking the agreements, how many of us take time to read it? There was a survey that was done a few years ago, and it found that 1.7% of people actually take time to read the agreements, right? And I'm telling you, you should read them because they say a lot of things many times. And so from an investment perspective, I think it's very risky because, again, a lot of these entities, right, again, contracts with the entities give them permission to, for example, revoke your land that have been allocated to you. So, I mean, my accountant is not really, me and the metaverse don't go along so well. I mean, I understand the social benefits, but from an investment point of view, it's a bit shaky. I think there's other ways you can reduce carbon, or you can be more carbon friendly, reduce emissions. So a few of the other speakers spoke about from the point of inception, again, the use of the EDGE certification, so using the right materials, carbon materials, also including the right infrastructure to measure things, or measure energy consumption, measure water use. Those are very useful. I think for investors too, the real estate market, I think, has been a bit slow to taking advantage of technology, in my opinion. And I think one of the things that we're seeing in the circular or sustainability space is the prevalence of, or the prevalence of this carbon credits, right? I don't know if anyone has heard about it, but you can read on it. It's only going to get a bit bigger in the next few years. I'm sure everybody has heard most of the corporates and governments speaking about carbon neutrality by 2030 or 2050, but we're traveling around the world and nobody's seeing anybody reducing their usage of carbon, right? Nobody's seeing the lights go off, nobody's seeing anything. And what is happening is that the world is increasingly relying on this mechanism of carbon credits. And in the real estate sector, with a lot of properties and a lot of space on the roofs, I feel that this is a better investment for your money than investing in, for example, the metaverse, right? I was speaking to a friend of mine that that runs a solar company. They do commercial solar, and in the last 2 years, I mean, from the numbers he gave me, they had gotten about $50,000 worth of carbon credits that they had no idea about even existed, right? And so again, from my opinion, I think the real estate market has an opportunity because of the spaces, because of of course, the properties, because of the properties coming online. There's an opportunity to plan, again, using earth certification, again, using the green resources to have those assets generate revenue for the industry, and also reduce carbon emissions. So yeah.
All right, thank you, Victor. And I think you kind of touched on a little bit our next question, which I'm going to direct to you as well, seeing as you said you are the IoT specialist. So if you look at the current ESG landscape, it is clear that some of the biggest technological leaps and the most transformative technologies in the field have their prime application in the built environment, like you said. And this is particularly the case with IoT. which has grown massively in popularity in the recent years. So can you maybe speak to us about how some of the challenges that people face in basically proving their sustainability assessments and how smart technology and IoT can help with this? So I'll start with you, and then maybe Okwe, you can answer afterwards.
Okay, thanks for that. The question around measuring sustainability, yeah, I touched a bit on it, and I think it's very important to have those incorporated. Okay, so yeah, I think it's important to have those incorporated from early on, right? So again, once you're at the planning stages, and it's a bit simple. I was having a conversation earlier. Things like having sensors to measure your solar consumption. There's sensors on the market that go for $100 to $200, and you have, and in fact, if you have bigger industrial systems, I'm pretty sure that the systems come inbuilt with a tracking device, for example, right? So first of all, it's about having the database, and to get that database, you need to invest a little bit in the right IoT devices, the right technology to do it, and they exist out there. Now, of course, when you compare it to the benefits, right, it makes a very sound business case many times. I'll give an example of there's a project, or there's in Kenya right now, the National Construction Authority, where we've been able to help them over the last few years digitize the, let me find the right words, digitize the management, so from the registration through to the approvals of the construction for the National Construction Agency in Kenya. So everything is digitized. And so when there were some organizations trying to get like things like EDGE certification, or have things around more sustainability, or have things, measure their sustainability, it was easier to go on that platform and extract that information for them, right? And extrapolate that. So really, the main thing is that it starts from the database, right? If you have a right database, right, and again, a right way of collecting the data using IoT, then proving the sustainability is, it's just a matter of looking at the numbers, right? The numbers speak for themselves. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think data is absolutely key, because without knowing the impact, or without knowing what you're missing out on, you can never make that right decision. Like you said, about a company that didn't know it had about $50,000 worth of credits you could actually claim just for going green. So I think awareness is really key. A lot of times in our market, I think some things are not, people are not really aware of these things. So I think making that information available is absolutely key, and things like what you run as well, definitely makes, monitoring and making those decisions absolutely easier. For instance, like, at one of our properties, we're actually providing about 25% of our power from green initiatives like solar. So, if you tell that to, a developer who is currently struggling to, power his buildings, having the exact number, having the exact impact of the solar measures we've taken may actually go a long way to convincing someone that you should spend an extra however many million or capital expenditure on actually going green. So those actual figures need to sort of come out and be easily accessible so that people can actually see what's going on.
So what I'm hearing is that the benefit is twofold. The fact that you can use Proptech to gather this data, you can use it to confirm to these investors who are looking to invest in impact type projects to show that your building really is a sustainable building. And then secondly, you can also use it to convince your users that investing the capex into these more sustainable solutions will actually have a more longer term impact on reducing their costs. So those are the two benefits I'm seeing of using smart technology and IoT in PropTech. Yeah. Okay, so thank you very much. We're going to switch a little bit and talk a little bit about diversity. So, there's a lot of talk about diversity and inclusion at the moment, but many of these discussions are centralized around gender diversity, racial diversity, disability inclusion, which are all very, very important topics. But one area that is often ignored is financial inclusion and financial diversity. And in what ways can technology be used to enhance financial inclusion in real estate specifically? And how can this be regulated? So, Modupe, I'll ask you, and then Tosin as well, if you can answer this question.
Thank you. So financial diversity is, okay, so in layman terms, a mid-income earner, anybody can actually just be able to invest in real estate. So, I mean, it's diversity in itself is a major problem across all sectors. So, for instance, with my phone, I have an app called Bamboo. So I have access to be able to invest in stocks in the US. And so you see technology working in those sectors. Why not in real estate? So, I mean, if this is possible, it helps everybody to include. So we have, I mean, hello, okay, so we have something called crowdfunding that allows a lot of people to be able to invest in real estate. Thank you. Yeah, so I mentioned crowdfunding. It allows a large number of people, so you don't need to wait to invest. You don't need bulk amount of money, to invest in real estate. There are also, tech companies like Tola mentioned earlier, like Realty. Realty has been able to use technology to fractionalize payment structure when it comes to real estate. So, I mean, we're hoping that a lot of other, tech companies will come up. So, for instance, I work with Buy Let Live. We are like an online real estate marketplace that connects buyers and sellers. So our aim is to simplify and digitize the process of real estate in the Nigerian sector. So we understand that diversity is, it's very important. I mean, we just had our event on the 1st of November, the real estate sector. We had key stakeholders partner with us, and we understand that collaborating with the financial sector, technology will now be a tool, to bring all these parties together and ensure that, everybody's included. So I think that's my take on that.
Okay, thank you. I think while agreeing with my other speaker, I think naturally technology will always deliver financial inclusion, naturally. Whether it's a product that is specifically built for financial inclusion or not. Why will this happen? This will happen because primarily technology enhances systems and processes. It makes them faster. Anytime you save time, you save money. It makes them more efficient. Anything that is more efficient will save money. And apart from that, I think one of the things that I'm most happy for is that technology has the natural tendency to break down barriers to entry. And this is one of the biggest things that we have seen as the benefit of technology and technology products, especially in Africa, where you have a lot of people that are not naturally financially included. And when she was talking about buy, let, and leave, one of the things that I believe they do is they simplify that process of finding property and all of that. So what happens is that once the process is simplified, then a lot more people have access. And there is information readily available that makes the process of seeking a service or seeking a product much easier to every and anybody. And there is technology as a service, which now, primarily is focused on ensuring that barriers are broken and a lot more people have access to what typically was available in the conventional market, but was available to a select few. So talk about products like Uber. I don't need to have a vehicle for me to be able to have a good, experience moving from point A to point B. So whilst there is this party A that is going to an event with their Range Rover, I don't have a Range Rover, but I can sit in front of my house wherever I am and order a taxi that gives me the exact same kind of experience as this person that has ridden in their Range Rover to maybe an award ceremony or what have you. So whilst you may not be counting the inclusiveness in that product, it has actually, enhanced the experience of a customer and made them at par with somebody else who is not, on the same, financial level with them. Also, products like, you have people like Split that are now doing, experiences that allow people to, share spaces, to co-live or co-work and all of that. That's also some kind of financial inclusion. So if I desire to, for instance, get an apartment in Banana Island, I may not have the resources to do that naturally if I had to go to the conventional market. But if Split, for instance, or any of these other, co-living platforms had an apartment in Banana Island, if it's a 4-bed or 5-bed unit that is available, if 4 or 5 of us are coming together to take, lots from that apartment, then what that means is automatically there's a crash in the price, and what ordinarily in the conventional market is only available to a certain class of people now becomes, opened up to many more of us, right? I think she also spoke about co-investing, right? In real estate, there are now opportunities where, people bring technology-enhanced, investment products to the market where you don't have to own, the whole of a unit or real estate asset. They're broken down into, different smaller lots, and I can make an investment at whatever level I'm able to afford and enjoy the benefits of returns from real property. I mean, I can go on and on, but I just wanted to, ensure that we understand that apart from the direct, impact on financial inclusion that happens when people build products that are specifically to achieve that purpose, every kind of technology, whether service, product, always has a way that it delivers financial inclusion in one way or the other.
Excellent, thank you. So basically, real estate or Proptech can create access for everyone, and people like Split or Rent Small, etc., they're actually helping people who may not necessarily be able to afford to rent or buy a home at the larger scale to do it on a fractional basis. Okay, so I think we'll stay with diversity because, there are many Proptech solutions for building management, for property sales and leasing, like we've talked about, and for rent collection. But there's a growing awareness that real estate really can have a significant social impact. So how do we shift focus and investment into more social housing in West Africa, even things like elderly care facilities, for example, those sorts of solutions? So I'll pose this question to Okwe and Modukwe.
So yeah, I think a lot of those things are really important to actually developing the ecosystem, but they need to be a bit more incentivized. They need to be a bit more thought out for this particular market, because elderly care in maybe more Western climates is very popular. It's very profitable because they don't have the same cultural inclinations that we do, in that when your parents are getting old, you bring them into your home, or you set them up somewhere. In more Western climes, it's more profitable because, people have the tendency to be more, singular, more alone. So rather than staying on your own, you would be in an elderly care home. So I think we need to find a way to make those kinds of things more popular here, or give those things more attractive, because make those things more attractive, because software, data collection, those things, they seem more interesting, more attractive than social housing, or making making the ecosystem more sustainable and stuff like that. It's not as glamorous as getting 1 million users and being a unicorn, but if you find a way to actually make it work for you, like there's a company I read about in Denmark, and what they did is there's things called waste to energy converter plants. So basically they take trash and then they burn it, and they convert the gases into energy. And there's a particular one that's powering 150 homes, 150,000 homes in Denmark right now. But what they did to it is that they built their plant, and then on top of it or around it, they built like a leisure park. So imagine because obviously these facilities, they are very tall and very big. So they built a ski slope all the side of it, and you're able to actually engage in that building as a regular person. You can bring your trash there, get it burnt. 85% of that trash is burnt to actually generate energy, and it's powering homes. But then on the side of that, you can climb the wall of the building, you can, ski down, you have, places to eat and share with your family. And they've obviously done it so that the gases that are, emitted are not, harmful. It's just water vapor that's released. So things like that, for instance, if I was a developer and I had a project to create, a landfill site, thinking, just about the landfill site wouldn't be, attractive. But then, wrapping it around, things like climbing walls, tech-enabled things can then make it more attractive to people. Making it smart, gives it data as well. So it makes it more interesting than just, building homes for old people. So I think we have to find a way to make them more attractive to this climate, find a way to make it more exciting for us here, so that people will actually engage, engage and try and do that.
Okay, I just wanted to make a comment about we learned in the last panel, we're not all solving to be billion-dollar unicorns, we're solving to, for problems, we're trying to solve problems, yes?
Yes. Thank you, Okwe. I mean, the whole idea around creating such opportunities, I think the government needs to create a more enabling society and environment where a couple will say, oh, this is a profitable venture. For instance, you've looked at the inflation and the returns as 20%, and you're looking at the whole environment like, okay, so how will I profit from this? Because yes, we're solving problems, but it also has to be profitable, right? To sustain the business and for growth. So if it's, if we have a better environment where this is more encouraged, because we look outside the country where this kind of system is sustainable, they have the backing of the government. It's an enabling society, it's an enabling environment, you can do it and you can thrive. So as much as I agree with Ope, I'd like to say from this angle, if developers like Popo, where we're all encouraged to look towards this side of development, why not? So that's my take on it.
I disagree. I believe that elderly care facilities, in fact, I believe there are two ends to the underserved markets in Nigeria. And I also believe that I believe that the government isn't the solution to our problems. I think sometimes we have to find, we know the story. There are many, many things that the government could do to help us. But I think the whole purpose is to talk about how do we use technology and how do we use our business in real estate to solve for problems. And there are two very underserved markets at two ends. There's the students and the young professionals, and then there's the elderly. Most people in real estate tend to focus on maybe two clients, the ultra luxury and then the middle income earners. They forget the lower income earners where students and young professionals fall, and they forget the elderly. Because I guess our culture says that we will look after our parents, but not everybody has that capacity. And in this Japa society we're living in, not everybody's even in the country to look after their parents. So I really do think this is an area that requires some focus, and it's such an underserved market that the profits are there if you're willing to take that first mover advantage. So I'm encouraging Purple and Buy Let Live and Small and everybody here to look into that. Okay, so I know we only have about 10 minutes left. No minutes, 5 minutes. Okay, so we'll see. Are there any questions from the audience? We'll take questions from the audience. There's a gentleman over there and another gentleman over here. So we'll take those two questions and then we'll round up. Can someone give them a mic?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the session. It's been quite interesting. My name is Martin, and I think I would rather that maybe Deborah take my question or something, because Tosin already touched on it, how the subject of the metaverse is going to complement conventional real estate. But I think that, picking a cue from what happened through COVID and how it has changed, the traditional landscape in the real estate market, I think the dynamics is going to change further, right? COVID has made us, COVID, for example, and how e-commerce has grown has made us understand that I don't necessarily need to go to a grade A mall, for example, to get my groceries. I can sit back at home, order stuff, and they bring it. Now we are talking about an ecosystem where I can actually just walk from the metaverse. I can actually just buy stuff from the metaverse. I can actually just, interact with almost everything I do on a daily basis from the metaverse. So from your thoughts, having been in the market, sorry, okay, thank you. How do you think this is going to shift in the next 10 to 20 years or whatever it is? And how will, from your perspective, how should players So thank you. And how should players in the market be positioning for the opportunities and maybe the risks that comes with it? Thank you.
Thank you very much for that question. I think, and this is just my opinion, we recently shifted from the industrial age into the information age, which is where we are. Data is king. And I honestly think that in 10 to 20 years' time, we will shift from the information age into the virtual age. And I really do believe that the future is very likely to be virtual. It's a sad thought, but I really do think that's where it's going, because you can do so much. Yes, you cannot eat in the metaverse, and yes, you cannot go and see a doctor in the metaverse, but you can do almost everything else. You can go to a concert in the metaverse, you can buy clothes in the metaverse, you can have a party in the metaverse, you can actually have training sessions, you can work in the metaverse, you can have a meeting in the metaverse. So this is really where the future is going. The challenge with the metaverse, and it's a pro and a con, it's beneficial to people, and people like it because it's this decentralized environment. You can pay for everything with cryptocurrency, and what people love about it is that side of things, but it's not well regulated. I do believe that because the future is in the metaverse, that's why you've seen this sudden rise in the cost of land. The land decentralized that Tosin talked about, that's currently selling, the plots that was currently selling for $15,000 now, were selling for $1,500 2 years ago. So one of two things will happen, and we've seen this in tech. So there's usually this boom when things go, when things start. So, early mover advantage, you make a lot of money, and then things stabilize. I think we're in the boom stage. I do think that the cost of land in the metaverse will stabilize eventually. The challenge is, how do you value land in the metaverse? It's an unregulated environment, so you can't take RICS standards into the metaverse and say, okay, you're going to do a percentage of this, or, how do you value land and property in the metaverse? There is not enough regulation right now, and I think there probably needs to be at some stage in order for it to be a safe space for us to interact. But I do think that everyone needs to start thinking about the fact that in 10 years' time, in 20 years' time, we really are potentially moving into a virtual world. And if it might not be in our lifetime, maybe these are investments we need to make for our children, perhaps. And Tosin probably has a different opinion.
No, I don't have a different opinion. I think I quite agree with you that every kind of human interaction is likely going to move and have some bit of it, experientially happening virtually in the next few years, as a matter of fact. And so you need to be looking for how the businesses that you do and the things that you do right now, how, the metaverse can enhance, your business, your operations, or even the ways that you do social interaction. A lot of people are already optimizing the benefits of having, meetings, people take courses. I mean, there are so many opportunities for you to, become closely entangled with everybody else across the world, within this virtual place. It also enhances customer experience, client experience. People can, almost physically encounter, you can go to places that you've never been. You can go on a tour, you can experience countries you've never been, you can see things, so there's a lot of opportunity. But I think to protecting ourselves or being prepared for what the eventual outcome will be, it will be like every other thing, every other direction that technology has gone. So we're finding more and more now that, product developers, product owners, platform owners are the ones that will now determine the rules within their environment, right? So they become like self-regulatory, organizations in some form, and then users must then begin to direct, the kind of experience that they want to see on those platforms. And when you see that there are options and there are alternatives, then you must determine why this particular one and not this one. Do I want to invest in Ubuntu land, or do I want to go to Decentraland? I mean, it's the experience, the rules, and the governance framework that should help you determine, where you're going. So I wasn't going to disagree with you.
And let's just say API, very soon we'll be doing this WAPI or API Summit in the metaverse. Please record this clip and play it then. All right, one more question? Okay, unfortunately, we're out of time, but I just want to say a huge thank you to my panelists. It's been a really engaging discussion. And thank you to everyone. I know you were rushing up, you were waiting for lunch, so thank you for sticking with us throughout this session. It's really been great having you with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Please let's celebrate this very stellar panel for this amazing conversation.